Most of your decisions aren't even yours anymore. Before you speak, you think about how it will sound. Before you act, you think about how it will look. Before you chase what you want, you wonder what other people will think. And little by little, without noticing it, you hand over control of your life to strangers, co-workers, friends, family, and people who are too busy with their own problems to think about you as much as you imagine. You're alive, but you're not leading your life. You're managing perceptions. The hard truth is that many people spend their entire lives performing. They wake up, put on the personality that gets accepted, say the things that keep the peace, hide the parts that might be judged, and call it being themselves. From the outside, everything looks normal, maybe even successful, but inside, there's a constant pressure, a constant tension, because deep down they know they're living according to expectations instead of truth. That's why they're exhausted, not because life is hard, but because pretending is. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear. The more you need approval, the less free you become. Every time you need someone else's validation to feel worthy, you give away a piece of your power. Every time you silence yourself to avoid rejection, you betray yourself. Eventually, you wake up and realize you've spent years trying to be liked, accepted, understood, and approved of, while completely neglecting the one relationship that determines the quality of your entire life, the relationship with yourself. Most people don't lose themselves all at once. It usually happens politely, quietly, almost like good manners. You learn what makes people comfortable, so you become easier to digest. You learn what gets praised, so you repeat it. You learn what gets judged, so you hide it. Little by little, your natural shape starts bending around the expectations of others, like a young tree growing around a fence. At first it seems harmless. You're just adapting. You're just being realistic. You're just trying not to make life harder than it already is. But then one day, you realize you don't know what you actually want. You know what would look good. You know what would sound impressive. You know what would make certain people nod with approval. But when life gets quiet and no one is clapping, no one is watching, no one is giving you a sign that you're doing well, something inside feels strangely empty. And that emptiness isn't weakness. It's a message. It's the part of you that was pushed into the background asking, when do we get to live? There's a kind of prison that doesn't have walls. It's built from imagined opinions, a look, a comment, a delayed reply, someone not reacting the way you hoped. Suddenly your mood drops, your confidence shrinks, and your mind starts working like a detective trying to solve a crime that may not even exist. Did they dislike me? Did I say too much? Was I strange? Am I falling behind? It sounds small when you say it out loud, but when you live that way every day, it becomes heavy, really heavy. Focusing only on yourself begins here, not in arrogance, not in coldness, not in pretending you don't care about anyone. It begins when you take back the right to define your own life. You stop asking, how do I appear? And start asking, is this honest? You stop asking, will they approve? And start asking, can I respect myself if I keep living this way? That question changes everything, because approval can make you feel good for a moment, but self-respect gives you ground to stand on. Once you begin to see how much of your energy has been spent performing, a strange discomfort can appear. You may feel exposed, almost like you've taken off a costume you've worn for years and your skin doesn't know the air yet. That's normal. People often think freedom should feel instantly beautiful, but sometimes freedom feels awkward at first. Sometimes it feels like standing in an empty room after the music stops. You're not lost. You're just hearing yourself without the noise. A mask isn't always a lie. Sometimes it's protection. Everyone needs a way to move through the world. You can't pour your deepest self into every conversation, every workplace, every casual interaction. But problems begin when the mask becomes the master, when the version of you that was created to survive starts deciding what you're allowed to desire, what you're allowed to say, how much of yourself you're allowed to reveal. At that point, the mask no longer protects your life. It replaces it. And maybe you know exactly what that feels like. Being the calm one when you're actually hurting. Being the strong one when you're exhausted. Being the agreeable one when something inside you wants to say no. Being the successful one while secretly feeling like your soul is sitting in the back seat, staring out the window, wondering where you went. You can keep an image alive for a long time, but you can't feed your spirit with applause alone. Eventually, the inner hunger becomes louder than the outer praise. So the first step toward becoming untouchable is not becoming harder. It's becoming truer. People confuse being untouchable with being numb, distant, or emotionally unavailable. But real untouchability is much quieter than that. It means the world can still speak, but it no longer owns your center. Someone can misunderstand you without destroying you. Someone can disapprove of you without making you abandon yourself. Someone can walk away, and yes, it may hurt, but it doesn't erase who you are. And from there, the journey goes deeper. Because once you stop living only through their eyes, another old habit tries to pull you back. It doesn't always come as fear. Sometimes it comes as comparison. You look around and wonder why others seem ahead, why their lives look cleaner, faster, more certain. And if you're not careful, you trade one cage for another. You stop performing for approval and start racing for worth. Comparison is sneaky because it pretends to be motivation. It tells you to look at other people so you can improve, so you can catch up, so you can become better. And sure, sometimes seeing someone else's discipline or courage can wake something up in you. Nothing wrong with that. But there's a darker kind of comparison, the one that doesn't inspire you. It humiliates you. It makes your own path feel small just because it doesn't look like someone else's. You see someone your age doing better, or at least appearing to do better, and suddenly your whole life goes on trial. Their relationship becomes evidence against your loneliness. Their money becomes evidence against your effort. Their confidence becomes evidence against your uncertainty. Their timeline becomes a weapon in your own hands. And the saddest part is, you may not even want their life. Not really. You just don't want to feel behind. But behind what? That's the question nobody asks. Behind whose schedule? Behind what invisible law that says your soul must bloom by a certain age, heal by a certain season, succeed by a certain deadline, become impressive before anyone doubts you? A flower doesn't look at a mountain and feel like a failure because it isn't tall. A river doesn't apologize for taking the long way around stone. Nature understands something humans keep forgetting. Growth has rhythm, and rhythm can't be forced without breaking something. When you compare yourself constantly, you don't just envy another person's result. You betray your own process. You take the strange, winding, deeply personal path your life is trying to create, and you drag it into a marketplace where everything must be ranked, measured, displayed and judged. And of course you feel tired there. A sacred path cannot breathe in a place built only for competition. Focusing on yourself means leaving that marketplace. Not physically maybe. You still live in the world. You still have responsibilities, goals, bills, people, work, dreams. But internally, something changes. You stop using other people's lives as a measuring tape for your own. You stop turning every success you see into a silent accusation. You begin to understand that someone else's sunrise doesn't mean your night is a mistake. There's an old saying, a man who chases two rabbits catches neither. Simple, almost too simple, but painfully true. If your eyes are always on someone else's path, your feet can't fully walk your own. You'll keep changing direction based on what looks impressive from a distance. You'll pick up dreams you never actually wanted. You'll abandon quiet callings because they don't look dramatic enough. And years later, you may arrive somewhere that earns applause, but feels like a foreign country inside your own body. A person becomes dangerous, in the best way, when they stop needing to be ahead, because then they become difficult to manipulate. You can't shame them with someone else's timeline. You can't rush them with artificial urgency. You can't seduce them with every shiny version of success passing by. They may still work hard, maybe harder than before, but the work comes from alignment now, not panic, not envy, not the need to prove they deserve to exist. That's when peace starts to return, not lazy peace, not passive peace, a strong peace, the kind that says, my path may not make sense to everyone, but it doesn't have to. And once that truth settles into you, comparison begins to lose its poison. You can admire without shrinking. You can learn without copying. You can celebrate someone else without turning against yourself. That's maturity. That's freedom with a spine. Yet even after comparison fades, something more subtle may remain. The fear of being judged. The feeling that people are watching, analyzing, silently deciding your worth. You may stop racing against others, but still feel haunted by their imagined opinions. So now the journey turns inward again, into a place most people avoid, because it requires a kind of honesty that can feel uncomfortable at first. You begin to ask, are they really judging me, or am I hearing my own hidden voice through them? Sometimes the biggest distraction in life isn't other people. It's the constant need to know what they think about you. You replay conversations, analyze reactions, and search for hidden meanings in every look or comment. Before long, your attention is no longer on your own path. It's trapped in a cycle of interpretation. And the more energy you spend trying to manage other people's opinions, the less energy you have for your own growth. The truth is, many of the fears we project onto others begin within us. If you secretly doubt yourself, every criticism feels larger. If you fear rejection, even silence can feel personal. That doesn't mean your feelings aren't real. It simply means that not every battle is happening outside of you. Sometimes the real work is learning to recognize the voice inside that keeps questioning your worth. This is where real strength begins, not by pretending nothing affects you, but by becoming aware of what affects you and why. Instead of reacting immediately, you pause. You observe. You ask yourself whether the situation is truly threatening or whether it's touching an old wound. That small moment of awareness can change everything because it shifts your focus from blame to understanding. As you spend more time with yourself, something starts to settle. The noise becomes quieter. The need for constant validation loses its grip. You stop chasing approval and start building trust in your own judgment. Little by little, your confidence stops depending on what happens around you and starts growing from what happens within you. That's when you become harder to shake. Praise is appreciated, but not required. Criticism is considered, but not worshipped. Other people's opinions become information rather than commands. You remain open, but you no longer hand over control of your identity. A person who knows themselves moves differently through life. They are not constantly seeking permission to exist. They are not changing direction every time someone disagrees with them. Their sense of worth comes from a deeper place, one that cannot be easily manipulated by approval or rejection. Focusing on yourself is ultimately about reclaiming your attention. It's about bringing your energy back from all the places you scattered it and investing it where it can actually create change. The more you do that, the more grounded you become. And the more grounded you become, the more untouchable you are. Not because nothing can affect you, but because nothing can take you away from yourself.